Hi there, my name's Colin and this is the AFR video channel. If you're new to this channel, welcome. I hope you enjoy my videos. Today I'm going to be looking at the Wave 1 of the Playmates Vintage Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles line of figures. These in the UK were released as the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles due to concerns of the use of ninja in the title. In this video, I am going to take an in-depth look at each of the individual figures, their accessories, weapons, rarity and value. Playmates released the very first line of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in 1988. And over the next 5 years, more than 250 million figures were sold worldwide. The initial vintage line was produced between 1988 and 1997, although some countries continue to receive stock until as late as 1999. The original line included Donatello, Leonardo, Michelangelo, Raphael, Bebop, Shredder and Splinter, all with both soft and hardhead versions. It also included April O'Neil, the Foot Soldier and Rocksteady in hardhead only. And in the UK, Bebop, the Foot Soldier and Rocksteady were not released until 1990. Before I continue and get into looking at the figures, don't forget to support this channel by subscribing below, smashing that like button and clicking on the bell icon to be notified of all my future releases. When you click on the bell icon, don't forget to select all on the drop down menu to make sure you get your notification. You can also support this channel by donating using the thanks button below this video. Okay, the first figure we're going to look at today is the Leonardo figure.
ActionFigureResource.com. Yesterday's toys, today's treasures.
Leonardo was the level-headed leader of the team and Splinter's favourite disciple. Leonardo's head sculpt was far from accurate to the cartoon character, and his facial expression made him look like he was suffering from constipation, rather than being angry or menacing. This was due to the grimace sculpted on his face, and the fact that only the teeth on the left-hand side of his mouth were painted in. That said, the detailing in the sculpting, particularly on the shell, was very good. The paintwork was also pretty good. It was clean, crisp and clear, even down to the letter L painted on his belt buckle. Leonardo had an olive green skin tone, which was probably the most turtle-like of all of them, and he wore a blue bandana. For accessories, as well as the standard weapons and weapon rack, he came equipped with 2 katana blades, crossed and attached to his back. For articulation, he had a swivel neck, swivel joints on his shoulders, allowing an up and down movement, a cut joint in his forearms, allowing his arms to fully rotate 360 degrees, and semi-ball jointed articulation on his hips, which gave him a fair amount of movement that was only hindered by his shell. However, unfortunately, there was no knee or waist articulation on these. This figure came both with a soft and hard head. I could not find the price of any soft or hard-headed graded figures, but mint on the card soft heads sell for around $480, and mint on the card hard head figures sell for between $75 to $575. Loose, he sells for between $10 to $15 complete. Next is Michelangelo. Michelangelo had a very similar head sculpt to the Leonardo figure, but with narrower eyes, and the teeth on this sculpt were painted on the right hand side rather than the left hand side. He also wore an orange bandana and padding on his elbows, wrists and knees. Michelangelo had a dark green skin tone rather than the later olive green of Raphael. This figure also had very little likeness to the actual cartoon character, but hey, who cared? And most kids could tell the difference by the colour bandanas they wore and their skin tones. He was also a very cool looking dude anyway. Michelangelo, as with Leonardo and the other turtles in this line, had a swivel neck, swivel joints in his shoulders for up and down movement, a cut joint on his forearm allowing his arms to fully rotate, and semi-ball jointed articulation on his hips, which gave him a fair amount of movement, hindered a little by his shell, and again there was no knee or waist articulation. The colours on this figure were crisp, sharp and clean, and were well applied, right down to the M on his belt buckle. The detailing on the sculpt was also quite good, with his muscles and veins popping out on his arms. His hands were sculpted as open fists in order that he could hold his nunchaku. For accessories, other than the weapon rack and the other standard weapons, he came with 2 nunchakus strapped to his back. These were all made from the same orange or tan coloured plastic and had some great detail. This figure was released with both a soft and a hard head. Soft-headed graded figures sell for approximately $540. Soft-headed mint on the card graded figures sell for about $540. Hard-headed mint on the card graded figures sell for about $280. Soft head mint on the card figures I couldn't find any samples of, and hard-headed mint on the card figures sell before $90 to $190, and again mint loose complete figures usually sell for around $10 to $15. Next is Donatello. Donatello, unlike Leonardo and Michelangelo, who only had teeth painted on one side of their mouth, had all his teeth painted in, giving him a much fiercer and menacing look. Donatello's skin colour was a lot darker as well, almost brown, and he had a purple bandana, elbow pads, knee pads and wrist pads. Both the sculpting and paintwork on his figure looked better than the others, but that was probably more due to his skin tone, giving greater definition to the details, and his face sculpt and painting being more complete. Donatello's shell was more of an orange than a yellow, and also looked very clean and sharp with plenty of detail. He had his initial D painted on his belt buckle with a nicely detailed and sculpted straps. Donatello's signature weapons were 2 bow staffs that were strapped to his back. These were made from the same orange or tanned plastic as the other turtles' weapons. The reverse of his shell was painted a much darker green than the other turtles, but this contrasted well with his skin tone. The detailing on his shell was excellent and even had some battle damage scars. Again, there was a swivel neck, swivel joints on his shoulders allowing for an up and down movement, a cut joint in his forearm allowing his arms to fully rotate, and semi-ball jointed articulation on his hips, which gave a fair amount of movement that was hindered a little by his shell. He was also sculpted with open fists to hold his bow staff. Due to the position and angle his feet were sculpted in, This figure was extremely difficult to stand unaided. Again, he was available with both a soft or hard head. The only graded soft-headed figure of this I could find sold for $135, which was an extremely reasonable price. Hard-headed graded figures I found was selling for around the $235 mark. Soft-headed mint on the card figures generally sell for between $125 to $200, and hard head mint on the card figures for between $60 to $225. And again, complete mint loose figures sell for between $10 to $15. The last of the turtle figures we're looking at is Raphael. Raphael also had a full set of teeth painted, giving him the same menacing and fierce look. Again, the head sculpt, although very detailed and well painted, looked nothing like the cartoon character. Raphael had a red bandana and pads and a very light green skin tone with a light brown shell to distinguish him from the other turtles. The paintwork was generally good, but around the eyes, patches and his bandana, it was a bit sloppy with some overlapping. But the R on his belt buckle was crisp, clear and clean. Raphael's shell on the reverse was a sparkling emerald green, and again was very detailed with some battle damage and scars shown. He had a swivel neck, swivel joints on his shoulders, allowing an up and down movement, a cut joint in his forearms, giving his arms full rotation, semi-ball jointed hip articulation, which gave a fair amount of movement. Unfortunately, this was slightly hindered by his shell. Raphael's signature weapons were his two fairly large and long side daggers, which were held in place by two pouches on the front of his belt. And he came with the regular standard weapons, weapon pack and weapons rack. Price-wise, soft-headed graded figures sell for $470 and hard-headed graded figures sell for about $275. Soft-headed mint on the card figures sell for between $75 and $150, and hard-headed mint on the card figures for between $110 and $250. The sculpting, articulation and even the head sculpt on all of the turtles was very similar, but it was their differences rather than their similarities that made them so popular, as each of the turtles had his own signature skin tone, bandana colour and weapons that made them individual and unique from each other, no matter how similar they looked. And this was the true genius of these figures. Before we take a look at the rest of these figures, I have a small favour to ask you. If you would like to support this channel so that I can continue making videos like this, join the best action figure guide on the internet, and for less than $2 a month you'll get access to a database of more than 60,000 figures. You'll also get access to free tutorials, guides and checklists, and a library of hundreds of video guides and reviews. To learn how to become a member of the best action figure guide on the internet, see the link here or in the description box below. Okay, so the next figure we're going to look at is Rocksteady. Rocksteady was sculpted in a light grey plastic with excellent detailing and was slightly taller than the turtles. He was sculpted and painted wearing a black vest, camouflage pants and a green helmet. For accessories, he came with a large serrated turtle carver, a Mutagun gun and a manhole cover shield. The sculpting and paintwork for this figure was some of the best work from Playmates at the time, and it looked great, especially when Rocksteady and B-Hop were stood together. Rocksteady had swivel jointed shoulders, with a cut in the forearm allowing the arms to be fully rotated, semi-ball jointed hips and a swivel jointed head, but again there was no knee or waist articulation. This figure, graded mint on the card, sells for about $445. Mint on the card ungraded, he sells for between $115 and $230 and loose for between $10 to $26. Next is B-Hop. B-Hop was a very colourful, mean-looking mutant warthog with a purple Mohican hairstyle and a big ring through his nose. He was sculpted and painted wearing a red waistcoat, blue sunglasses and black pants. For accessories, he had a turtle shell drill gun, a knife and a trash can shield, all made from the same grey plastic. For shoulder pads, he had 2 regular sized shells. He also wore a large skull necklace around his neck that dangled down over his chest, and he wore chain wristbands on his wrists. The paintwork on this figure was excellent, especially as there were so many different colours, and the detailing was also exceptional, with minute details down to even the stitching on his vest. And he was slightly taller than the Rocksteady, so he towered above the turtles. B-Hop had a swivel head and arms with basic articulation and a cut joint on each forearm so you could rotate his arms, semi-ball jointed hips which gave him a good range of movement. This figure, graded mint on the card, sells for $700. Mint on the card ungraded for between $60 to $210 and loose for between $8.50 and $30. This was only released with a hard head. Next, we're looking at the Foot Soldier figure. For some unknown reason, Playmates decided to make the Foot Soldier the rarest figure in this line, with only 1 figure per case. The Foot Clan soldiers in the comic book were originally humans but were later changed to robots. This was probably to make the cartoon and the comics both more kid-friendly. There were no soft-headed versions of the Foot Soldier, and these, like Rocksteady and B-Bop, were designed by Peter Laird. The Foot Soldiers had very little similarity to the characters in the comic book. They were sculpted wearing a purple hood, gauntlets and boots, a grey shirt with a black belt and waistbands, blue pants and large shell-like armour plates on their forearms, which were supposed to represent turtle shells, but they were purple. The biggest problem with the Foot Soldier was that they were sculpted in a weird gorilla-like stance, which made it difficult for them to be stood unaided, and they looked rather short. They had ball joints on the hips and shoulders, so their arms and legs could be fully rotated. They also had a cup joint on the forearms as with the other figures, but the turtle shell armour limited the movement of their forearms. There were 3 accessories for the Foot Soldiers: a turtle shell biter, an electroshock mace, and a turtle carver knife. These were all made from the same grey plastic as B-Hop's and Rocksteady's weapons, and they had a lot of detail sculpted into them. The Foot Clan soldier also came with a weapons rack, like the turtles. The sculpting on the figure was very good, with a lot of attention to detail, such as the folds on his clothes, belt and hood. Graded mint on the card, this sells for around $475. Mint on the card, he sells for between $100 to $240 and loose for between $22 and $45. Next up is Shredder. Shredder was and still is the leader of the Foot Clan, an organisation of evil ninjas who want nothing more than to control the world. He became the leader of the Foot Clan when he betrayed his ninja master, Hamato Yoshi, who later became Splinter. If you compare Shredder to the comic book character, the two are completely different, but there are a few, and I stress a few, similarities to the cartoon Shredder. The action figure had a blue colour scheme rather than body armour, and his face mask was painted on as a cloth mask rather than the full metal mask as in the cartoon. Also, the way his eyebrows were painted made them look weird and out of proportion. In the comic book and the cartoon series, Shredder is a larger-than-life, mean, menacing and imposing figure. But here, he looked rather small and rather scrawny, instead of being muscular or strong. Despite this, the details on the sculpting are very good, but he just doesn't look like Shredder. In fact, Playmates didn't really get his look right until the 2003 Shredder was released. Shredder, as with the Turtles, was released initially with a soft head that was later replaced with a hard head. The easiest way to tell the difference, especially if mint on the card, is to check the head for a seam, as all the soft-headed figures did not have a seam on them, whereas the hard-headed figures had a seam going down the middle of the head. His articulation, as with the other figures in this line, was pretty basic, with a swivel head, swivel jointed shoulders, a cut joint in the forearm and semi-ball jointed hips. For accessories he had a cutting armour sword, ninja stars, fist daggers and a kama. These were all made from the same brown plastic as the Turtles' weapons, but it would have been nice to have seen some contrast between the wood and the metal weapons. The detailing on these, however, was good. Price-wise, I couldn't find any examples of soft-headed figures, but graded mint on the card hard head figures sell for around $575, and mint on the card hard-headed figures sell for between $80 to $225, and loose for between $19 and $32. The next figure I'm looking at is Splinter. Splinter was the rat mutation of the ninja master Hamato Yoshi, who was betrayed by Shredder and was the Turtles' Sidoshi, or teacher. This figure was probably the least popular of all the Playmates Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles line. After all, he was just an overgrown rat, and not even particularly a good-looking one. Also, the figure is often sold without his robe, which makes him look even worse. The sculpting and painting on the figure were pretty good, but they were also fairly basic, with him just being a rat. As already mentioned, he came with a removable purple robe, which is usually missing when he is sold on the secondary market. For accessories, Splinter had a ninja bow, a sword cane and ninja stars. These were again all made from the same material as the Turtles' weapons. For articulation, he had the same as the Turtles, with a swivel head, swivel jointed shoulders, a cut joint on the forearm and semi-ball jointed hips. Splinter sells for around $200, graded mint on the card, and for between $37 to $150, ungraded mint on the card, and loose for between $10 to $23. The last figure we're going to look at is the April figure. April was a determined TV news reporter, always hunting for the next story and breaking news. However, her overzealousness often got her into trouble and caused the Turtles no end of problems and headaches. April was the Lois Lane of the Turtles universe and was a go-between between the public and the media. As already discussed in the first video in this series, the original April figure did not have the blue trim on the legs and arms of her jumpsuit. But this error was quickly corrected, and later versions came with the stripes on the legs and arms. This version of the April figure is therefore one of the holy grails of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle line. The other holy grails in this line were the Ray Fillet figure. The original figure, with its solid yellow jumpsuit, was well sculpted with some nice details such as the 2 breast pockets on her jumpsuit and rolled up sleeves. She also wore a white belt around her waist and white boots. The paintwork was basic as there weren't many colours, but what there was applied cleanly and evenly. April had a swivel head, swivel joints on her shoulders, allowing for an up and down movement, a cut joint in her forearms so her arms could be fully rotated, and hinge jointed hips for her legs. But because of the semi-crouching position, she could only be posed in a sitting or squatting position, and it was difficult to pose her in a standing position. April's eyes were painted blue, unlike most of the other figures who had solid white eyes, but they didn't look right and gave her an almost cross-eyed look. For accessories, April came with a camcorder, a gun, a wireless microphone, and a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle portable computer, and a ninja star. But why she had a gun or a ninja star, let alone knowing how to use them, was questionable. There were many different versions of this figure due to the different header cards and the fact that there were striped and unstriped versions of this figure that could come on either type A1 or A2 cards. And also, to add to the confusion, you had the variant press figure. For more information on all of these, see the first video in this series. There are 3 main versions of the April figure: striped, no striped, and orange press suit. The original figure, graded, mint on the card, sells for around $225. Blue striped graded figures for $250, and orange jumpsuited figures with press written on the breast pocket for around $220. No striped mint on the card figures sell for between $100 to $190. Blue striped mint on the card figures for $25 to $115. And the orange press suit mint on the card figures for between $30 to $150. And the loose figures for between $10 to $55. Please note that all the prices mentioned in this video are for informational purposes only and are not a solicitation or offer to buy any at these prices. However, if you wish to sell your figures, drop me a line through the contact address in the description below. Don't forget to support the channel by subscribing below, smashing the like button, and clicking on the bell icon to be notified of my future videos. When you click on the bell icon, make sure you select all in the drop-down menu to get your notification. If you want to donate to the channel, please see the thanks button under this video. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it useful. Don't forget to check out the link here to watch the first video of this series. Until next time, bye for now.
actionfigureresource.com. Yesterday's toys, today's treasures.